is Josephine, in case you have not met me, and I am a teacher here in Singapore at a seminary called East Asia School of Theology. And I'm teaching at a program called Partners in Ministry program. My family, we came from Canada, but originally I was from Hong Kong. So I speak Cantonese. How many of you speak Cantonese? Raise your hand. None. Okay. So I grew up in Hong Kong and moved to Canada when I was 19 years old. So we lived in Canada for over 20 something years before moving to Singapore. So this is our 7th year living in Singapore, and my husband and I both teaching at this school called East Asia School of Theology. And my focus is actually teaching at a program called Partners in Ministry program. It's a program that cater to equip and encourage ministry wives to serve alongside with the husband. So we have a program at East. It's every Monday. It's a 2-year certificate program for the ministry wives to grow and to continue to serve with the husband. But besides that, what I'm doing right now, which you're being part of this workshop, which is Sisters in Ministry Toolbox. This is what we have that you're tuning in right now. I kind of got prompted in my heart starting last July that there are a lot of sisters out there that may not be have the opportunities or resources to go to seminary, just not having enough time or money, whatever the situation is. But it got impressed in my heart that to do free online workshops for a sister that are biblical, practical, and creative to help us, all of us, to grow in our faith and also to be more effective, serving more effective at home and also your ministry setting. So that's also a reason why we have this ministry called Sister Ministry Toolbox. And if you like to know our updates, and so it's the best way to connect with us is through this Facebook page, which is SIM Toolbox. SIM Toolbox, okay? And then if you follow our page, basically our most updated like videos or workshop details will be posted there. So our last session will end May this year, and then we will continue again in August and September. And we will take a long break during the summer. So you would like to be interested and connected with our group and knowing what's happening on new workshops, go to our Facebook page and follow our Facebook page, SIM Toolbox. SIM Toolbox. Okay, so and then we have workshops in Mandarin as well. So if you're interested, you have friends that speak Mandarin, you can invite them to our Mandarin workshops as well. All right, so we've been studying this women, and some of you might be your first time joining us. So let me just so just now we have read this whole passage. Now, how many of you feel stressed or feel so much pressure after you read this woman? Raise your hand. Every time we read about her, we just kept saying, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Oh my, she doesn't sleep at all. Oh, she can do this. Like, she is just amazing, right? And I'm sure all of us feel, when we look at her, like we feel so little about ourselves. So I hope that if you have not been to the previous sessions, I hope you will be able to catch it up. Actually, I posted on a Facebook in our Facebook page, the previous videos, you'll be able to watch it from session 1 up to this point. We have dissected different areas like how this women build physical, emotional, and today we're going to talk about spiritual intimacy with her spouse. Okay, so we've been talking about this woman is amazing. She's like a jewel that is sparkling jewel to bring life and joy to her husband life, and this husband trusted her deep inside, deep down in his heart. Okay, and we've been talking about he that seemed good and not evil all the days of her life. So last time we have talked about the spirit, emotional connections with our spouse. So we have looked at a few things that will, first of all, how us kind of build up our own emotional wealth. That we talk about soul care and self-care. So how can we ourselves first understanding ourselves, okay, building our soul care, like our time with God, like how can we get healed before God? Because we cannot minister to someone else until we are our own emotionally is healthy. We cannot minister to someone else if we are not emotionally healthy. So we must be healthy emotionally so that we can minister to our husband or people around us. So we have talked about soul care and self-care. Self-care is some of the things that will energize us, something that we do, could be cooking, could be listening to music, anything that will make us feel recharged. So as women, sometimes we're very sacrificial. Okay, we give all our time to everyone else except caring for ourselves. So we have talked about how we should also care for our own emotional health before we minister to our husband. We also talk about negative core beliefs last time, that when we have to understand sometimes we get into argument or our expectations, it could be some of our negative core beliefs. So if you're interested, go back to watch that video, which is session 3 in more details. And we'll also talk about how we can focus on the good things of our husband. And then we also talk about some of the obstacles or the right mindsets for us to build emotional intimacy with our spouse. All right, so this is what we have kind of covered in the last session. We're going to continue today. We will be finishing off our emotional intimacy. And before we forget, if you've been attending, you know that I've been asking everyone to write down this statement. I, your name, commit to fulfill my calling as a beautiful wife in God's eyes by. So this is a vision statement that as you go through our workshops, I want you, if God spoke to you in certain ways that you need to change, or there's certain commitments that you want to be able to remember, then you will write down in the list. Okay, so if you still have this piece of paper with you, the vision statement of being a godly wife, okay, so you can take it out and then start filling this out as we go through the workshops. There are some of the key things that you have seen or learned. Yeah, all right. Okay, and I also see a couple other ones. Lily also shared negative core beliefs. I feel distressed. Yes. Okay, very good. All right, so we've been studying this verse for a few sessions already. Basically, we've been talking about she does him good and not evil all the days of her life. Okay, so we talk of what is good, which is something pleasantable, agreeable. Evil is something that we cause our spouse in much pain and misery. So we've been talking about physically, emotion, and spiritually. And as we've seen, it is all the days of her life, her lifelong commitments to serve her husband good, but not evil. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you still remember your wedding day? Okay, let me everybody close your eyes for a minute. Okay, let's think back. I don't know how many years ago. Okay, do you still remember the day you got married? Okay, how did you feel the day you got married? How did you feel that maybe years ago? How did you feel? Your emotions, your feeling for your husband. How did you feel? Did you remember the day when you got married? Okay. Of course, I was hoping you guys would say something like, oh, yes, I was so excited to marry the man in my life finally. Okay, I think because of the preparation, a lot of times it's very overwhelming. The process of preparing for marriage is very overwhelming. But the reason why I'm asking our sister, all of you, this question is because sometimes I think after we marry for a number of years, I don't know you feel the same way. Sometimes we might not have the same kind of excitement or same kind of fever, when we come to loving a spouse. Don't you agree? Sometimes for some reason, it's like the busyness of life and just having so many things going on, the children, and you just feel just sometimes you feel like it's not the same. So does love fade over time? This is the question I'm asking. Because sometimes there are days in life we don't expect to be like Hollywood, right? Or like Korean drama. The couple is always, wow, fireworks and all that. It's just unreal. But sometimes we being honest to ourselves, right? When we were dating, right? We for sure, we want to do everything to please our spouse, right? We want to pick the right outfits. We got excited when we go on a date with our spouse. But now that we've been married for a number of years, right? Sometimes you probably feel like, oh, don't get near me, right? You have the feeling, okay, don't bother me, okay, please leave me alone. Okay, there are times that we feel like we may not be drawn to a spouse. There are times that so what I'm saying here is in Revelation 2:3-5, when God talks about the Ephesian church, that they have lost their first love. They have lost their first love. I think sometimes as wife, we have to also, I think, remind ourselves, okay, remember the first love, remember the emotion or the love that we once had, the commitment that we once had for our husband. Now, I'm not saying that now we don't love our husband. This is not true. But what I'm saying is sometimes because of busyness of life, because the children come along, there are a lot of gaps that happened during the years of marriage. So I've been married for 21 years. And I dated my husband for 7 years. So we've been together 29 years. That's quite a long time. And I must say, sometimes you don't feel like high all the time, right? This is just impossible. So I'll tell you how in the place when I feel plateau or very low, I really have a method that really helps me. Another one is repent. I think sometimes we might be withholding emotionally or even sexually from our spouse, okay, because of the anger or the accumulated arguments and resolved conflicts. So we might be kind of withholding emotionally and sexually to develop emotionally with our spouse. Another thing is return, okay? So as you notice, it's all R, okay? So renewing our commitments to her. Return to the first love and make commitment to nourish your relationship. And this is only can be by the grace of God. And there are many times in my life, in this 29 years of relationship, sometimes I really ask God. There are days I feel like I only care about my own interests or maybe my own priority, my own commitments. And I fail to be a good wife and love my husband that God wants me to love him. So this is my prayer to God. I say, God, help me. I just can't love him the way you want me to love him. It's just too hard for me sometimes. And I said, God, can you help me to love my husband the way that you want me to love him? So amazingly, and every time when I pray this prayer, God would just somehow renew my passion, my commitments, my love for my husband, and the reward is great. And it's almost like moment and decision by decision. Okay, but if you ask God to help you, the reward is wonderful. That you can have a strong marriage, and it really builds our characters. I think all of us experienced it in our marriage. This is one of the toughest relationships sometimes. Okay, besides taking care of children, besides parenting kids. And it's also a way of God, using this relationship to sharpen us, to make us, it's a spiritual formation for us. And sometimes the journey is tough and it's not easy and it's difficult. But if we rely on God, I see so much fruits throughout my difficulties. And every time I say, God, help me, God, help me, God, help me. And I see the rewards at the end is just wonderful. So I want to give you a few minutes if you also resonate with this prayer to ask God to kind of reunite your commitments to your spouse, the love that you used to have, and ask God to give you that love again to love your spouse. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes and give you some quiet time, then you can pray this prayer. This is something that you resonate with. intentional. Thank you, sister. So I think when it comes to building relationship with a spouse, we have to be very intentional. I grew up in a family where I never, ever seen my parents going on a date after they got married. How many of you have parents that still go on dates? Raise your hands. You have any parents that would go on a date? Anyone? I think in our Asian culture, okay, we just not natural, or it's just not something that our parents would do, okay? So sometimes we kind of assume that's the norm, okay? That, you know, you got married, okay? Then all your focus is on the children, right? Raising the kids. As I shared before, now my parents married for 40 years. But it's so sad for me to see how I'm so grateful for them, how they raise us. They put so much effort, time, and energy in us. But now they're almost like stranger now, even though they're not divorced, okay? But I must say emotionally, they're divorced emotionally, because there's nothing to talk about. There's no friendship, there's no partnership, there's just nothing in common. And I still remember I shared with you all before, I made a commitment when my son first arrived on this earth. I made a commitment that, you know, my marriage will always be number one, okay? Because I don't want to be like my parents or some other couples that, you know, when the kids are gone, it's like nothing we can talk about. Now, it's never too late, even though you might not have thought about this. Maybe your kids are grown up, but I don't believe it's never too late to build your relationship with your spouse. And in our experience in our school, we run marriage course, which I will talk about a bit more later. There are people who marry for over 30 years, 35 years, they would still come to the marriage course and to learn to, we build a relationship again. Okay, so it's never too late to rebuild this relationship with a spouse. So my commitment ever since my son was born, this is my commitment. I wanted to be my husband's best friend and his best lover. This is my as a wife, this is my lifelong commitment. I want to be his best friend and his lover. So I think connecting emotionally is very important, especially finding fun things to do together, like the old times. And then date night is, I think, even though something that we do not see our parents do, but it doesn't mean it's not important. So I think the connection, being intentional of connecting with each other, either once a week, once a month, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, it's just the intention, being intentional in building that relationship. I want to share with you when it was circuit breaker, okay, in Singapore. How many of you remember that circuit breaker in Singapore? I'm sure all of us, right? Remember that we can't even go out to have dinner, can't even go out to have, just cannot go out to eat, okay? And I felt so depressed, okay? I think all of you feel the same way, right? You feel very trapped in the house. And to me, not only because I could not go out, the fact that I couldn't go out, I feel trapped, but the fact that I have to sacrifice my date night with my spouse, with my husband, because everybody's in the house, I can hardly find the uninterrupted time to talk to my husband. Now, my kids are 12 and 7, okay? Once we start talking, they will come to you like, mommy, 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 mommy. So it's like, there's no chance I can talk to him. So, but then I feel like we need to make a commitment to stick to our date night. So what we did is, in a little patio that we had at our house, okay? We set up a tiny table and we sit out at the patio and have a little hot pot, okay? So you guys cannot come out because only mommy, daddy can talk to each other, okay? This is our mommy, daddy sign, okay? So you cannot come out to talk to us. So the point is, I think it takes creativity, and, you know, all of us can do it, can put on some effort and creativity and intentionality, okay? Even circuit breaker, you can still make it work, okay? So I would just want to share this with you because it's kind of awkward because our patio is super small. Once we put the table, it's like nowhere to walk around the whole thing. But the point is, really doesn't matter. The point is, you just want to spend time together, being intentional, connecting each other. So for me, that was really helpful for my emotional well-being, to be able to connect with my spouse. I know some of us may be having a hard time or don't even want to spend time with our spouse. Could be various reasons. But I must say something that could be done little by little. Could be find something that you enjoy, you once enjoy when you were dating. Maybe just go watch a movie if you don't want to talk to each other at this point. Find something fun to do. And I realize something. Men, sometimes they don't like to talk. Okay, how many of you can relate to that? Right? They don't want to sit down and talk. Right? How many of you can relate to that? Your husband is like that type? Any one of you? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah. So they don't like to talk and sit down and have heart-to-heart conversation. It's just not them. Okay. So there might be things you can do. I don't know, play badmintons or ping pong or whatever things that you have done before that you enjoy, or cycling, walking. Then you don't have to force the person, your spouse, to talk to you with a heart-to-heart conversation. It could be something that you can start building this rhythm, this habit again in your marriage. And I find that also very helpful, mini connection at the end of each day, just connecting each other, just quickly asking about each other, how's your day? And one thing I find it is so important that later I will share a little bit more. How can we set time to be no gadget? Okay. It's quite sad recently. I think throughout the past few years, I've seen a lot, which is a lot of families when they go out to eat or when they're together, instead of talking to each other, everybody is looking on, at the phone. Okay, everybody's looking at the phone. Okay, so relationship really get destroyed by gadgets. Now, I'm not saying gadget is not good. It's wonderful. It helps us with many ways. But in the same time, if we're not careful, the gadget really sabotage, kind of destroy families, especially the time that we need to connect with each other. So later I'll talk more about how to set some guidelines and boundaries in your family. And when you're dating, it could be think about some of the dreams and challenges, can share some of these ups and downs. Now, again, if you haven't done this for a while, and maybe your relationship may not be what you want, so you might start with fun things to do together first, okay? And then slowly, hopefully God will open doors for you to start sharing life together, seeing how you can encourage each other, how you can share your ups and downs, and show interest in what your husband do. So that's something that we can do. And then couple retreat, that could be something that you consider once a year, that go away maybe 2 days, 1 night, or there's something I had me and my husband trying to do every few at the end of each of our teaching semester, to regroup, kind of rest as well together, and talk about how we share, this whole semester, what we've been, how God is doing in our lives. So let's think about it. When was the last time you had fun going out with your husband alone? Okay, alone, without the children. Okay, so if you're thinking to yourself, we haven't done it for a long time. Okay, so maybe after today, maybe you make a commitment. This is something that you hope to do with your spouse. Okay, just commit to each other. Okay, once a week, once a month, or however is best to suit you. How can we build this relationship by just being intentional, as simple as dating your spouse. And I hope for all of you, my sister here, that I also pray that your marriage, like, you will also become your husband's best friend and the best lover. Some of you may say, I am too busy. I have no time for dating. Okay, I can relate to that. I think all of us are very busy. However, I must say, if something that's important, I think all of us will be able to find time to do, right? So I'm sure we find time to doing things that are important. And I find that, our marriage is the best investment in our children. Marriage is the best investment in our children, because it's really hard to be able to parent our children if you and your spouse is not on the same team. It's very hard to parent our children if you and your spouse are not in the same team. And that having a strong marriage is very crucial in parenting. So this is an investment that, instead of thinking about spending our kids to, I mean, it's important that we send our kids to other enrichment classes and all that. But to be honest, the greatest investment is really in your marriage, because your children can see the difference. If you guys in the same team, they can feel that, you know, you're also making an impact for their future marriage. So I want to introduce to you one thing that we do at my home. Something that you can consider is having a well-balanced life. And I find that it's so important to be able to slot down, to put down all the important things in our lives, because we're so busy. So that could be areas where you can put like God, your time with God, self-care, time to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, creatively, your marriage time, which I call it the dating time, family time to bond with each other, work, ministry time, or other time, okay, that is just for work, okay? So I want to show you quickly, this is something that we do at our home. And this is a schedule that we've been adopting for over almost 10 years. The reason why we have this schedule is because we have gone through a very tough time in the seminary. Our marriage was so tough because my husband was so busy studying, and I felt like I'm always by myself. I felt so lonely, and I felt that, wow, my marriage is falling apart because my husband hardly gave me any attention. And I felt like it's always about studying on ministry, this and that. So that was the time when we together really seek God. God, help us to, how can we balance everything, like our marriage, our work, our children, and our relationship with you? Then got to be something that, you know, it's not out of our own strength, it must be something that you can help us to survive in all these areas of our lives. So this is the schedule that God has given us since the day we were in seminary. So now everybody is different, okay? So this is work. This one works for my family. So you might have another schedule than us, okay? But the key thing is you should consider these few key components, these these components in your schedule. Now, I believe these are all the important components that everyone in the schedule should schedule some of these time, no matter what, okay? So here's some of our my example to you. So for us, first thing in the morning, it will be our time with God. So individually, me and my husband, before we're talking to our children, that will be our time with God. And then every night, between 6 to 8, Monday to Friday, we don't work, okay? Even though they're ministry, we don't schedule things during this time. So we would have time with our children, spend time together as a family, and dinner time together. And no one can touch the work, no one can touch their phones, okay? All the phones are gone, no one can touch the computers. That's our family time. And then Saturday night is a family time. So we have set aside, Saturday morning is a family time. So for us, because our children still enjoy the zoo, so we bought the annual zoo pass. So this is a family activity in the morning on Saturday morning. So we usually don't change that. And so when we schedule other commitments, ministry commitment, we don't schedule Saturday morning usually. So Saturday night is our marriage time. So once a week in our case, that we will go out once a week. So in my home, I would go out with my husband once a week, and then I usually schedule play dates for my children, so they also feel not left out, okay? And Sunday is the day of rest and also connecting with others, inviting maybe our house as a home to host another family, to reach out to other families or our students. So it's a time for us to connect socially as a group together, okay? So I want to challenge you, okay? Looking at this schedule, okay? I'm sure you will have a different schedule, but maybe you and your spouse together can consider including some of these key elements in your family schedule. Maybe something that you can dialogue and pray together. What would be a good schedule for your family? Now, all of us have children in different ages, so it might not look like this. Because you might have teenagers, you have older children, they might not even have time to spend with you. So in your case, maybe just every Sunday night is a set time. Everybody will have to come back and tune in, and you cannot, make plans with your friends. And that's the time we will spend time together as a family. without any gadget. No one can touch your phones, make the ground rules. No one can touch your phone, and just connect, maybe do something fun together or eat meals together, just talk to each other. Okay. So all of us have a different schedule and different seasons of life. But I must say, okay, once again, these are the key elements: God, self-care, your marriage time, family time, work or ministry time. Okay. So I'll let you have, hopefully you can go home after today, do a scheduling. Maybe you can talk to your spouse about it. Okay, and other things I want to, before we end our time for a break, there are a few other things like talking about being intentional priority and study his interests and needs. And I find it's so important sometimes. For example, I really don't like watching movies. Okay, it's not my, my favorite thing to do. For me, my favorite thing to do is to look at new ideas and try it out in terms of craft or any other thing. So, but my husband loves movies. So I would go with him just because I want to be his company. But it doesn't mean I really enjoyed it. So sometimes you might have to do things that your spouse enjoy. Okay, so study what he needs, do things intentionally. Could be even watching TV show together. Now, I know a lot of couples at nighttime, maybe everybody is kind of doing their own thing. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have any me time or your alone time, but maybe choose 1 or 2 nights, can watch something together or do something together, so that you can still have something doing together instead of everything being separate. Okay. Phone free zone time slots. Here are some of the time that you should not have your phone around when you have meal times or you have family time, when you have date nights. Join a marriage course, something that I want to encourage you all to do, no matter how long you've been married. Okay. There's a free online course that you can go. Later, I'll tell you more that there will be one coming up. A couple retreats, few hours overnight. Learn something new together. Okay. Maybe do some free personality tests, 5 love languages, 16 personality tests. Those are the free tests to get to know each other. Okay. Mini connections. Maybe after the kids go to bed, just talk to each other, right? Talk about anything and don't interrupt and talking nonstop, right? Write appreciation notes, verbally being thankful and be kind. Try to go to bed together, sleep in the same room. I think somehow the physical proximity will help build our intimacy. Okay, and I understand some of our culture, in our culture, some of our Asian culture, sometimes when the couple married for a number of years, they might sleep in the different rooms. But I find that if you do that, I think not only physically you kind of moving apart from each other, that also emotionally you're moving from each other. So I understand sometimes because of the snoring, your spouse, have other habits that kind of make you cannot sleep well. Okay, so for me, I wear earplugs to sleep. So I make sure so that I can sleep well. Okay, some of us have a husband that snores. Okay, go on regular dates and discover a hobby together. Okay, so what are some of the good suggestions that you might have to connect with your spouse? All right, back to what we've talked about, and I just love how all of you just shared earlier all your tips, how you nourish your relationship, and I think it's important as older women. Sometimes if we marry for a longer time than other women, it's important for us to share the wisdom, and also I think sometimes mistakes as well with the younger women, so that they would, in Titus, it talks about older women to teach the younger women to love God and to love their husband and love their children. So it's important for us who we don't have to be perfect in a sense, but we share the wisdom, the things that we've learned, the mistakes that we've made, so that we can help younger women, especially if they're newly married, to also grow to learn how to love God and love the children. All right, how would you define someone who is spiritual? We kind of shift gear now that we finished talking about emotionally, and then physically, how we can build physically and emotional intimacy with our spouse in the previous session. So today we're going to go into spiritually. So how do you define someone is spiritual. Okay, how would you describe a woman that is spiritual? Okay, I
Can
love
someone-
all your sharing. Especially, we're going to look at this woman. There are 5 areas I want to talk about, especially how she has displayed that she is such a spiritually, very connected with God. So first of all, I want to define. Sometimes we think, oh, someone being spiritual could be someone, wow, very active in the church, that she can attend all the Bible studies, she attend all the prayer meetings, she is in all the church committees, she have 10,000 different ministries. Okay, so we might think, oh wow, in church we would see those people are being spiritual. But in fact, I'm going to talk about 5 areas how this lady, this amazing lady, is how she has displayed and a spirit that she's in tune with God. Okay, now we're not talking about legalistic, how much stuff she can do. We're talking about how she can be filled by the Spirit and be in tune with God's heart. Okay, so there are 5 areas I want us to look at. The first one, I want to say, this is really her secret. Up to this point, what I've been telling you is almost impossible to do. Okay, what I've been telling you, all these areas, okay, it's impossible to do out of your own strength. If you think that you can, oh, I can be, be more attractive in, being a lover to my spouse, but honestly, I really sometimes really don't like him that much. Okay, we argues in this area, I really not. So I want to say to you is, you cannot do this on your own. Cannot. It's just impossible. So we got to look at what is her secret of success, that she can be balanced in all these areas. Okay, then first of all, I think that's the most important thing. The reason why she can be so full of power, energy, and doing everything so positively is because she put God as her first priority in her life. Okay, thank you. So what is it talking about here? Poting, what do you think? What is this verse talking about here? Sorry, I picked on you. What does it say here? What is it telling us, this verse? What do you think?
It's not through the outer beauty, but it's the reverence, fear for the Lord, in awe of Lord.
Wonderful. Yes. So it's not about our physical beauty, which it fades. We all know that the wrinkles will come, the white hair come. It's nothing that we can last long. But it's talking about her reverence with God. Okay. So let me ask you a question. I'll give you a more definition later. What is the first priority in your life? Are there any wrong priorities in your life now? Or some of us, do you even know God? I think in the midst, maybe we're all believers, but in some cases, some of us may not even know God personally. So let's look at this first. What does it say? Deceitful, which means falsehood, lying, false, deception. So charm is something that it won't last forever. It's something that is fake. It's something that, just on the outside, deception. Okay, vain would be something like breath vapor, something that is very transitionary. Transition. Oh, it's so hard to say this word, which means temporary. Okay, something that is very temporary. Okay, it won't last forever. Okay, and fears. What does it mean? Is to fear and to stand in awe of God, to show reverence. So this is what the true meaning of fear means. Okay, is to honor, respect in everything she does, and praise to shine, to bring forth his light. Okay, now we have many priorities in life. Some of us, right, we got distracted by so many things, busyness of life, ourselves, exercise, sometimes could be our phone, the things that really occupy our hearts. So there are many things in life that kind of occupy our thoughts and kind of take the priority. Now, if I were to ask you, what is your first priority in life? Now, let's think for a minute. If you be honest to yourself, is it God your first priority in your life, or other things? Now, for me, like the previous years and earliest in my marriage, all these things I've shown you here on the screen, I have put them in my first priority in my life. Okay, shopping, myself, exercise, money, I have done it all. Okay, these have been all my priorities in my life, and that usually causes a lot of problems in my relationship with my spouse. Because if you find something else to replace God's in your life, you will become someone very self-centered and very selfish, and all you think about is your own self-interest. Okay, and that will damage your relationship with your spouse. Okay, and I've done it all. All these, I have all wrong priorities in my life. Okay, and I find that is so true. I want to show you this diagram here. Some of you might know this diagram already. The closer we move towards God, okay, together, your husband and yourself, the closer you move toward God individually, the closer we move towards each other. Okay. You see this triangle here? If your spouse walking this way and you are walking this way, have you noticed the closest point that you and your spouse would be the point that meeting here? So the closer we move toward God, the closer we move towards each other. And I can say this is 100% true because I've experienced it in my life, my relationship with my husband. When I spend time with God in my first part of my life, I change. Okay. Have you all noticed yourself? You change. You change to be someone that less concerned about yourself and more concerned about your spouse needs and interests. Encourage how can also we are closest when we're each close to God, about your life, not just about we're not talking about just in ministry. Now, how about encouraging your spouse to grow and also yourself? There may be something that we can do to encourage a spouse to grow in the faith as well. Later, I will talk a bit more about non-believing husband or someone who is not so into spiritual thing. Maybe your spouse is not so into spiritual thing. Okay. How can we help him to protect his quiet time? So I was thinking, okay, what are some of the creative ways that you can grow your faith during the busyness of life? Okay, we might be running out of time, so I just want you to type in the chat. Are there some of the practices that you do that helps you to grow your faith during the busyness of life? Anything you do personally that helps you to grow your faith personally with Christ? Any thought? Okay, if not, okay, I want to show a few things that we can do if we have younger children. And I think in the midst, we might, children are all grown, but for younger mothers, pray and clean. Okay, you can encourage a younger mother as they clean the house. You can also use this time to clean, or you fold your clothes or whatever, doing house chore. You can also pray and clean, pray and play. When you have younger children, that you can, say a quick prayer while you with your child. Pray before you scream. I find that this is very helpful to me. I'm in a stage, my daughter is still very young at 7 years old, and she's not very into academic. So you can imagine when we do homework together, a lot of tensions. You remember those days? Some of you have older kids. Did you remember those days when you had have to have a lot of patience helping your kids to do homework? Okay, I'm still at that stage. Many of you have already free in that sense. You have grown up children, so I find that it's very challenging for me to work with my kids sometimes, especially in this area. So I find it really a spiritual formation. Okay. Other things I think you might know this already, different prayers, adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication, how we pray. And I will send this all to you so you know there are more creative ways to pray and to connect with God. But if you're interested in my previous workshops, we have actually talk more in creative ways to build a relationship with God. Okay, so if you're interested, go back to watch some of these videos. I will send it to you after today. You put an evaluation, put your email there, and I'll send you a link to watch some of these previous videos that will help you to grow spiritual pathways. There's 7 different ways that we can, have developed a relationship with God. So it's not just about reading the Bible. There are many different ways to worship God and grow a relationship with God. Some of them are really, really fun, actually. Sacred rest, and also talk about 7 different ways to rest. Bible study methods, how we can study the Bible. So these are some of the videos you want to catch up, which is from our previous workshops. Okay, that will help you to grow your path, your spiritual relationship with God. Okay, so how can we help our husband to grow spiritually? But some of our husbands, they might not even believers or not into spiritual things. So what can we do? Okay, how many of you can relate to that? Please raise your hand that your husband is not so into spiritual things. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, yeah, they might not be so interested in spiritual things, or they might not be a believers. Okay, some of them. You might believe after you married. Okay, after you got married. Now, here are some of the things that I want to spend some time to talk about. What if you have non-believing husband? Okay, Ash, you might read this verse for us. Ash, thank you.
Okay, in the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives. 1 Peter 3:1.
Thank you so much. So what does it verse telling us? Does it tell us we have to bombard them with false spiritual laws? Or to tell them, okay, you must study your Bible, okay? You need to do this, tell them a list, right? How many of us can relate to that? Sometimes we might bombard husband, hey, you need to do your devotion. Come on, you need to read your Bible. Come on, you need to go to prayer meeting with me. Come on. But what does it say here? Sister, what's the key thing that we're talking about here? Anyone? Any thought from this verse? Behavior, right? Without a word, okay? That you may win them without a word, okay? It's the behavior. So I'm going to talk about a few things that we can do. What if my husband or my in-laws or the family are non-believers or not into spiritual things? First of all, very important, I think we need to ask God to open our eyes instead of blaming him for not being spiritual. Okay. Ask God to help us open our eyes to see where's the gap. Okay. What does my husband really need? Okay. Am I too involved in the church that make him kind of resenting of my faith? So am I ignoring his needs? Okay. This is very important because I see there's so many women out there. They're so devoted to God. Okay, they're in all the prayer meetings, all the Bible study. They're so active in the church, yet their spouse are not on the same page. And sometimes the spouse complained, why you always have to be at the church, right? Have you heard this before? Why you always have to be so involved in the church? Okay, so I think we have to be careful. If our husband is not into so, spiritual things, okay, we have to step back for a little bit. Okay, I think Shirley has asked a very good question at the first session, right? How can we, when do we know we need to give up for our husband? I think she asked a very good, similar like that, right? So Shirley, I don't know if you remember in the first session, she asked a very good question. I think some of us women we might have a little bit more time and our heart is can be more devoted to God in a sense, right? To attend all the church activities and all that. But sometimes we really need to step back, ask God, okay, how can I meet my husband's needs, okay, in a sense that is pleasing to God? So I'm talking about developing a spiritual discernment, to understand where is my husband? Where is his spiritual walk with you? Now, there's times maybe God would impress in your heart saying to you, hey, drop 1 or 2 prayer meetings, spend time with him, just to understand where, what are some of the needs that he has. Maybe I really been too busy with all the activities Monday to Friday. I'm hardly home. I hardly spend time with him. And what he needs is just my companion, just need me to be with him. Okay. So there's no right or wrong answer. How many Bible study you should attend or how many prayer meetings you should attend. But I'm talking about developing a discerning heart. I remember one of our students, he graduated from our school, and he was being offered for an opportunity to pastor the church as a senior pastor. Okay, he was being offered this opportunity. But instead of saying yes right away, of course, we all think, wow, of course, being senior pastor is a good thing because you're doing good thing for God. But instead, he held back. He said, for all these years, I haven't been spending enough time with my wife. For all these years, I have not spent enough time with my wife. And I see the damage in our relationship. So instead of saying yes to this senior pastor position, he said, I'm not going to go ahead because I know the commitments that be involved. And I cannot be so busy like I was before because I see the damage in my family. So he said no. So you see, my point here is not so black and white. You should say yes to this and that, but I'm talking about a discerning heart. Okay, how can we develop a discerning heart and understanding the needs of a family, especially if they're non-believers or not into spiritual things? And I think God has given our family also as ministries. God has given our family also, they're part of our ministry. Okay, so I don't know if I answer that question. So there's no yes and no answer, but it's actually a sensitive heart of, hey, what some of the needs of my family that I need to meet those needs first, before we can even talk about spiritual things, because there's sometimes it's more spiritual that you give up a few prayer meetings or Bible study just to see God, giving you a passion to reach out to your own family. How can I witness to my husband, in-laws, without using words? Maybe before we even share the gospel, we can evaluate our own actions, attitude, our words, okay? And I think sometimes our love for them, our caring for them is the most powerful gospel message. Sometimes we thought we share the gospel with our words, with our mouth, right? We have to tell them the clear Bible, the gospel message. But sometimes our actions, our attitudes, our words are the most powerful gospel message to them. So also, I really believe that if you have non-believing husband or families, God can really change people's heart. But sometimes could be take many, many years. Seems like it will never happen. But I truly believe sometimes only God can really change people's heart. And our job is to love and care for them the way God wants us to care for them. All right, let me pause here for a second. Any comments, questions at this point? Comments, questions at this point? Last few things I want to talk about is she is spiritual because she controls her tongue. I think this is the hardest of all, okay? And I just find it's so hard. Word can kill and heal, okay? Critical thoughts, negative thoughts, nagging, okay, on minor things, unrespectful words to a husband in front of others or other kid or our kids, kind of talk behind a husband's back, say all the hurtful words when you're angry or regret it afterwards. These are very difficult and it's so real. And I love how this James 1:26 talks about here. Okay, let me ask Yami, can you read this for us, please?
Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongue deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless.
Thank you, Yami. I think it's also one point she raised earlier. Someone who is spiritual can control her tongue, okay? Someone who is spiritual can control her tongue. And these are very strong words here. Their religion is worthless. Wow. If someone cannot control the tongues, their religion is worthless. Wow, this is such a great challenge for all of us. I'm sure we often would say things to hurt our spouse or people around us. I ask that God will help us to be, really control our tongue, because what we say really reflects our heart condition. What we say really reflects our heart condition. Okay, another thing I want to mention here, there are a few verses here that talks about how powerful our tongue is. Gentle words can bring life, and deceitful tongue can crush the spirit. Kind words are like honey to the soul and healthy for the body. Whereas the opposite, a wife who is always complaining, it's better for the husband to live in the desert. Okay. And then Shirley, you might read for me Proverbs 27:15. Thank you. So a contentious woman is like the dripping rain. I don't know you're experiencing dripping rain before. Now I came from Vancouver. We rain 9 months a year. 9 months a year, okay? We hardly see the sun in Vancouver. That's where I'm from. So for over 20-something years, every day is a dripping rain. It's like, wow, depressing. Every single day is dark and gloomy, depressing. So can you imagine how the Bible describes this woman if she's always complaining, contentious? It's like this dripping rains, like never stop, and just so dark and gloomy and just so terrible. Okay, I hope that all of us will not be like that. Okay, otherwise our husband will feel like something, wow, so terrible, it's never get rid of, it's something constantly, oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, so sin is not ended by multiple words, but the prudent hold their tongues. Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you like to blame others, or do you like to speak blessings or curse? Okay. Are your words encouraging or discouraging? Let me give you 2 minutes. Think about if you have a play recorder to record all your words every day. Okay. What kind of words that usually comes out from your mouth? And ask God, God, help me to be, my words comes out to be like giving life and sweetness to the people around me. So I'll let you have this 2 minutes to reflect on this. One thing that I've learned over the years is how we can show our disagreement, and especially when you're angry. Okay, some of us may be very easy once we're angry, we lash out the words coming from our mouth. Okay, and I done that when I first married, and I can see how damaging it is. Right, when you're angry, you say things that you cannot take it back. So, and then later on you regret, and the words that have been said can linger in the person's heart for years and still could be very hurtful. So I've learned one thing that has really helped me. Instead of me, when I'm angry, I say whatever, in my heart, usually are very hurtful. I learned to pause. Okay, I learned to pause and hide somewhere, go into a room, just to be calm, and then I will voice out all my complaints to God first. Okay, all my anger, my emotions, I kind of sort it out with God first. And then I find that it's much more fruitful if I come out more calm and pray for the right time to talk to my husband. Instead of just lashing out whatever in my thought, my anger. And it's just much more fruitful in that way. So maybe this is one thing that you can also, maybe some of you have been doing this already. Or some of you might be easy to just lash out whatever is in your heart. That could be damaging sometimes, especially the words that we cannot hold back. All right, so few more things I would love to mention here. Last but not least, be encourager, and thing we all know. I love how Lily mentioned earlier her appreciation diary. Okay, I think in the same way, we have to learn to be his #1 fan. Okay, be an encourager. Okay, and I love how these verses talking about how our words should be full of grace, seasoned with salt. Do not let unwholesome word, but only say something that is building up to our spouse. And I love how Lily mentioned earlier, even washing the dishes. Okay, you can use the opportunity to show our appreciation. Okay, so let me ask you to write down. I'll give you 3 minutes right now. if you can think about, if you have a list, okay, let's say a piece of paper, I want you to write down and then show it to your spouse tonight. Okay. One, if you can think of 3 things, or if you can think of more, okay, that you think, hey, I really appreciate you doing this. Okay. I'll give you 3 minutes. You get a piece of paper. What are some 3 things? Okay. Or if you can write more than 3 things, and I want you to show it to your spouse tonight. Okay. I'll give you 3 minutes to think about this. Right, wonderful. Almost all of you. Wonderful. Okay, remember. Show it to your spouse tonight. Okay, I'm sure he will be so happy. And this is so wonderful. And so show it to your spouse tonight and see his response. Maybe we can make it a habit. I love how Lily suggested, right? Her daily diary. Maybe this is a challenge for all of us. Okay, one day, each day, we find one thing to show appreciation to our spouse. Okay, I truly believe when we change, our spouse will also change. When we're kind to our spouse, well, usually will be in return be kind to us. Okay, so we set the example first, using our life, being kind to our spouse. All right, thank you, my sister. Okay, last few things I'd like to mention. She is spiritual because she is missional and cares for the poor. She extends her hand to the poor and stretches out her hands to the needy. Now, we all know that we're not just a wife or a mom, okay? Of course, we are a wife and a mom, but we're not just that. Because God has given to each one of us, we're also the daughter of God. And there are other things that we can do and fulfill our purpose. So, and that's also the reason why we have this workshop called Live Life to the Fullness. Remember the workshop I told you earlier? Is to discover what else I can do. Okay, what is God calling me to do besides my ministry to my family? Okay, What are some of the things that God has already given in your life, your abilities, your gifts, and your experiences? And I cannot tell you how happy I am now because I find the purpose in me. Instead of going shopping every day, oh man, like, and then complaining my husband not fulfilling my needs, complaining he's not meeting my expectations. Those were my days before, okay, when I didn't know my purpose, okay, when I didn't know my purpose. Besides being a wife and a mom, I have a purpose. God has given each one of us a purpose. Okay, when you live out that purpose, I guarantee you'll find a true joy in your life. And I know many of you are already living out this purpose. But some of us, we might want to discover, what is God want me to do for my life besides my ministry to my family? Another one is, she is spiritual because she's hopeful and positive. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at her future. In everything, give thanks to God in Christ Jesus. I want to quickly tell you, when I was first became a Christian, actually, I've been a lukewarm Christian for many years. So I just chase after the money and the job, and then God has made a change in my life. He brought me to China for mission trips. And I cannot tell you, I used to be a very complaining person, you have everything, but you still want to complain, right? This is not good. That one's not good. This is. So, I was that type of person until I went to China, and God brought us to a very poor orphanage that really served the disabled children. And I think it's my first time my whole life I see such poverty that I never experienced before. It's like, wow, how come I'm also Chinese, but I am not the one who living in the orphanage, but they are. And I think through that trip, for that experience, I start to see, wow, my life is so good and I'm so blessed. And I still remember coming back from those trips. Later on, we took many, many trips there. And that's how God called us into full-time ministry afterwards. And I just came back. I remember I was taking a shower while I was in Hong Kong with my dad. And in the hot shower, I thank God, thank you for the hot shower. I haven't had a hot shower for how many weeks? Thank you so much. I get a hot shower, that I have a clean bed to sleep on, and I have socks to put on my feet. I tell you what, I think, wow, I became such a changed person. And I find such richness in my life when I see, wow, the power of contentment, being content in all the little things in my life. And I think sometimes I also forget about the contentment, right? But when we are content, despite our circumstances, we can bring hope to the people around us. Look well to the ways of her household, and does not eat the idol of a bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband also praises her, saying, many daughters have done noble things, but you excel them all. She is spiritual because she cares about her family's and husband's needs, not just physically, but we're talking about the discernment. Remember, I talked about earlier, discernment. So looks well means she actually like a guard. Okay, this woman is like a guard. Keep watching everybody go in, go out. She observed everything that's going on in her family, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. What is going on in their lives? All the ways. And so you can see this woman, she knows exactly, have the discernment to understand what's going on in her family's needs. So how can I also develop such discerning heart and spiritual insight to see the needs of our husband and also the rest of the family? Okay, let me conclude what we have kind of talked about in our 4 sessions, and so wonderful. Thank you so much for your patience being with us for all these sessions. And if you would like to catch up from our previous videos, and my last encouraging words to all of us, sister, we are on the same journey together. And our purpose of studying this woman is not to make us feel less about ourselves, but instead, studying this woman, we know her secret of success. And all of us can be like her because of her secret of relying on God's. So I want to encourage you at the end. So being spiritual is not measured by how many Bible study or prayer meetings, ministry commitments that you're part of. Now, I'm not saying all these things are bad. This is not what I'm talking about here. But what I'm talking about by his spirit. How can we be in tune with him? Have a sensitive heart to love the people around us through our actions, attitudes, word, and decisions that we make. Okay. So it's almost like a minute by minute, moment by moment, things that we have to learn to grow our faith. We have discernment, asking God tentatively. We have an attentive heart to his spirit. And the reward is wonderful. The praises from God and people around her. And my favorite word, at the end, when the last verse talks about give her the product of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. The gates have dual meanings, the marketplace, but also the heavenly gates. So wow, can you believe it? One day what we've done on earth, God will also be praising us all the efforts that we tried. Now, some of us, maybe we're in a very difficult relationship. Of course, it's so hard to love someone that is not lovable. Maybe our spouse is very difficult to love. But what we do, one day God will also give us praises for what the efforts, the sacrifice that we made, and God sees all that. My last encouragement for all of us, something that encouraged me and helped me to survive and to thrive in my relationship throughout these years is this: Jesus, help me. Jesus, help me. Okay, my sister, Jesus, help me. Okay, especially when times are tough, when times are not easy in a relationship, when times we don't want to give in physically, emotionally, or even spiritually, that ask God, help me to love my husband the way you want me to love him. Let me pray for us. Dear God, we're thankful for all my sisters here today. As we learn about how to love our spouse, sometimes it's not easy. We thank you for this woman, how she has displayed seemingly everything so perfect, but we know her strength comes from knowing you, and her strengths come from putting you as the first party in her life. And you are the strength in her life that she can be so perfect and balanced in many ways. And I pray for all my sisters today, especially for those of us who have a very difficult relationship with our spouse. Jesus, help us. Jesus, help us in our relationship. Help us to be loving and kind the way you want us to love our spouse. We thank you for this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, So I want to mention once again, so if you would like to invite your friends to this workshop, how to live life to the fullness, okay? So and then invite all your friends, and you're welcome to join us as well. Invite your other friends to join. And one more thing I would like to mention is one of our workshop had time change, which is a colorful prayers workshop. It meant to be on Friday, May 13, but we changed it to May 12, Thursday afternoon, 1 to 3. So if you are interested to join us, please make note of that. I already sent you an email about this change because so this is a workshop. It's a very fun workshop. Okay. So I haven't had a chance to show you yet, but recently I've discovered a new way how we can connect with God through drawings. Okay, so if you're interested about Bible journaling, how we can use this tool to get closer to God. So you don't have to be an artist. You don't have to have drawing experience to attend this workshop. So I will be giving you some basic tips. Then you can start on this journey. And I find it's such a fruitful journey for me because I'm a visual person. And it really helps me to meditate my day and help me to meditate on God's word. So if you're interested, it's a very fun workshop, and it's such a great self-care tool as well, I must say. Also a creative tool for you to grow your faith. Okay, so we'll make note of that if you would like to join. So we change it to May the 12th, 1 to 3. Thank you once again for joining us, the Sisters in Ministry Toolbox. And we hope to resume our meeting So this series, How to Be an Attractive Wife, will come to an end. But in the future, stay connected with us on our Facebook page. Another workshop series I would love to share with you all is to how to be an attractive mom. Okay, how to be an attractive mother in continuation of what we talked about here. There's some research I've been kind of collecting since the beginning of this year, and something that I really want to for us to think about. How can we be an attractive mom to our children? Okay, so it will be maybe something in the future. I hopefully in September. So the best way for you to stay connected with us is, I told you before, is to join our Facebook page, where you will get the most updated information about our future workshops. So go to our Facebook page, SIM Toolbox.